Lorcana has released less than 20 cards, but if we compare them to see what makes a good card, what can we actually find out? What if we compare all the cards, see which one's the best, and then find out a lot about the game that you miss if you just look at each card individually? Some of what we're going to find is probably going to surprise you. First up, let's look at the 1-cost cards. We got Healing Glow first. Remove up to 2 damage from a chosen character. This is an action card, which means it's probably a one-time use for 1 cost. This might be a trick to keep your characters alive. As far as 1 cost goes, I'm not sure if it's going to cut it. Next up, we have Captain Hook, who's a 1 cost with 1 attack and 2 defense. But when he's challenging or attacking, I believe in this case, he gets a +2 to his attack. He's also got one of these little diamonds down here. Overall, he looks like a pretty strong card. He'd be a 3-2 when attacking and a 1-2 when on defense. Our last 1-cost card is Olaf, a 1 attack, 3 defense card. Nothing else, but at least it gives you the warm hugs. So taking a look at these 1-cost cards, obviously Healing Glow is the best. Just kidding. I think Hook's the best of these cards. He seems like he's strong enough to take out Olaf, and Olaf really can't do anything. On to the 2 costs. First up in the 2-cost cards is Aladdin. He's a 2 attack, 2 defense card, which doesn't seem stronger than any of the cards we saw at the 1 cost. But he does have Ward, which means opponents can't choose this character except to challenge. What Ward means to me is that you can't choose to target Aladdin with spell cards or items or anything else. So the only thing he can have happen is be challenged by an opposing character. It seems like some kind of avoidance, but it doesn't seem like that strong of avoidance. We'll have to see and play. Next up, we've got Cruella de Vil, a 1 attack, 3 defense, which is the same stats as Olaf, but then she comes with You'll Be Sorry, which is when this character is challenged and banished, you may return the chosen card to the player's hand. So the wording on this is interesting because that means you have to be challenged or attacked first and then banished, which I think sends it to the graveyard. But if that means that Cruella was banished through some other means, you wouldn't get to do the rest of this effect. After she's been attacked and banished, she's able to return a character to the opposing hand, but like I've said, if it happens some other way, she wouldn't get that chance. Last up in our 2-cost cards, we've got Magic Mirror. This one's an item, but this lets us do something interesting on our turn. For paying 4 more costs and tapping it, we get to draw a card. I don't know about Lorcana, but in most card games, drawing cards is very powerful. 1 a turn doesn't seem that great, but it definitely seems like you could take a card lead very fast. In my opinion, this is probably going to be a pretty strong card. So now ranking those cards, we didn't get too many strong cards. Aladdin and Cruella weren't incredibly strong. They seemed like the weaker end of a 2-cost. So I'm going to give Magic Mirror the gold. I'm going to give Aladdin number 2, and Cruella is going to take up the rear. On to our 3-cost cards. We start strong with Elsa, who's a 2 attack, 3 defense. She has the freeze ability, which allows her to be tapped to exert an opposing character. Exert, I believe, means being tapped as well. So she could, instead of challenging a character, she could basically remove them from combat, which seems incredibly strong. And it doesn't look like it has to be done on your turn. It looks like it could happen on the opponent's turn, messing up their plans. It just seems like a really good card. Next up, we have the Wardrobe. So we get a fancy dresser and closet for 3 attack and 4 cost. While it can store your clothes, doesn't do much else. 3 attack, 4 defense is bigger than anything we've seen so far, but I don't know if it justifies having a card that is just vanilla and doesn't do anything else. The 3rd card at 3 costs coming in late because this was just announced today, so the White Rabbit's Pocket Watch was very, very late, and its power is, I'm late, is tap it, pay 1, chosen character gains rush this turn. They can challenge the turn they're played. So this item seems exceptionally strong because every turn you're allowed to play a new character and have them attack on that turn. It only costs 1, and this only costs 3. So this seems like a very aggressive card and seems like it'll be a very strong pick. So where does that leave us for 3-cost cards? We've got Elsa, that is incredibly strong, and we've got Pocket Watch that could also be incredibly strong. I'm going to pick Elsa over the Stopwatch for number 1, Stopwatch for number 2, and the Closet coming up number 3. In the 4-costs, nothing, because they have not announced a 4-cost yet. I found it interesting, but I was really surprised that there are no 4-cost cards yet. So I guess let's take a look at the 5-cost cards. And this one might be one of the most interesting cards I found, because it's got something on this card that's different than every other card we've looked at so far. So, of course, we've got a 5-cost Aurora, and she's a 3 attack, 5 defense. And then she's got Shift 3. You may pay 3 on top of one of your other Aurora cards. So this is like a costume that lets you upgrade a previous Aurora to this version. So this is an upgraded version of the card. Your other characters gain Ward, which means opponents can't choose them except to challenge. That's the same ability that Aladdin had. So now you have a 5-cost card that you might get out for 3, which is a 3/5. So that's already pretty strong. But then this other ability means that your other characters gain Ward, so that seems incredibly strong. So now all of your cards are pretty much untargetable except for attacks. The most interesting part is in the lower left corner though. You can see there it says 139 of 204, meaning this is the 139th card of a 204 card set, which is the English first set. This seems to mean that the first set is going to have 204 cards, and I thought that was an awesome fact. This is the only card not featured on the Lorcana socials, so I think this is a cool find. Next up we have Dragonfire. This is an action that banishes a chosen character. It looks strong. It just completely removes a character from play. It's at 5 costs, which doesn't seem too absurdly high. It might just be an overall good card. Last up we have Jumba Jukiba. He's a 5 cost, 4 attack, 5 defense, which seems okay, I guess. He seems a little high cost. He only has 4 attack, 5 defense, but maybe that's okay. Now we have a card that looks a little bit different, and that's just because the way that they make some of these cards when they release them, the bottom text gets cropped. So someone actually recreated this text with a different font so that we could read it, which is cool. But this is Mulan. She's going to be a promo card, I believe, with Hades, and she's a 5 cost with 4 attack and 5 defense with the ability to lead by example. During your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, your other characters get +1 to this star thing that I don't think we know what it does yet. It's interesting that she gives us this ability, but I don't know if that's a good ability or a bad ability. But, you know, at best, she's already better than the Jumba Jukia guy. We've got 4 cards. I'm going to give Aurora number 1 because she seems to be best for your entire board. I'm going to give Mulan number 2. Because even though we don't know what those symbols do, the stronger cards seem to have more of those symbols, meaning they'll probably be pretty important. And then I'm going to give Banish number 3. It just seems like a better card than a 4/5 that doesn't do anything. We're going pretty deep now and getting to the 6-cost cards. Here we have Robin Hood for 6 costs. That's a 4 attack, 4 defense. And he has 2 abilities, one being Feed the Poor. When you play this character, if an opponent has more cards in their hand, then you draw a card. And then we have Good Shot, which during your turn, this character has Evasive. With Evasive, they can challenge characters with Evasive. What do we think about these abilities? He's a 4/4, which doesn't seem exceptionally strong. We saw 4/5s in the 5 costs. When you play this character, you have an opportunity to draw a card, which is a 50-50 shot. I don't think you'd play this card for just that ability. Good Shot's the most interesting thing here, because there are certain cards that you can only hit if they have Evasive. So he seems like a counter card to other cards, and unless the meta strongly has evasive characters, I don't think you're going to want to play Robin Hood all that much. Now we have my man, Scar, a 5/4. When you play this character, chosen opponent character gets -5 attack for this turn. So here we have a 5 attack, 4 defense, which does seem really strong. He's a 6 cost, which seems pretty high, but being able to drop a card and remove 5 attack off of a character during your turn when you're attacking, it seems like it has some interesting play. Next up we have Stitch, Rockstar. He's a 3 attack, 5 defense with shift to 4, meaning you can save 2 on his cost and put him on a different Stitch. Whenever you play a character with cost 2 or less, you may exert it to draw a card. This is an interesting ability because that means the longer Stitch is out, if you keep playing 1 and 2 cost cards, you can exert those to draw a card, and you can't already attack on your first turn, so being able to exert them to at least draw a card with them seems like an advantage. This seems like a very strong card generator. His attack isn't as high as some of the other ones, but he still seems like he has a lot of good utility. So now how do we rate those cards? Robin Hood, Stitch, and Scar. I don't think Robin Hood can hold up to the other ones, so he's going in last. I so want Scar to be number 1, but I don't think he can be. I think Stitch card generation is too strong, so I think I'm going to put him at number 1 and Scar at number 2. So like before, we had no 4-cost cards, and at the 7-cost cards, there are no cards. At least none that are released yet. So we're going to jump into 8s and 9s, and I'm grouping them together, or else we wouldn't have a very good contest here. So we're going to be looking first at Mickey. He's an 8-cost, 5 attack, 5 defense. Those stats really are not that high for that cost. As we've seen, Scar was 5-4 and he was a 6-cost. There were a lot of people at 4-5 at like the 3 to 5 range. So for an 8-cost, I don't know why Evasive would be that strong. Evasive means that he can only be challenged by an evasive character. I just don't see that being enough avoidance to help much. I don't think we can justify Brave Little Mickey, but he's got a cool costume. This card, Hades. Hades is interesting. I don't have a copy of the text at the bottom that is legible, but I do know what it is, so I'm going to let you guys in on it. So he's an 8-cost promo. He's got 6 attack, 7 defense with shift 6, meaning you can play him on top of another Hades. We're seeing a lot of those shifts, and it seems like it's going to be pretty common. I believe his passive is he gets one of those symbols that we don't know what they do yet for each other villain character. It seems like he'll be a card to build your decks around. Last up we have Maleficent at 9 cost, which is the most we've seen. She's a 7-5, 7 attack and 5 defense. But the problem is that's not even the most stats we've seen, with Hades being a 6-7. The only thing that really makes up for it is that when you play this character, you can just banish a chosen character. You basically get a free 5-cost card using the banish. I'm not sure if 7-5 is justified, and 9-cost is quite a bit, so this card probably won't see much play, but it does seem neat. So where does that leave us? I think Maleficent's number 2, Hades is number 1, and Mickey Mouse is number 3. I just can't justify an 8-cost Mickey that only has evasive. Maybe I'm wrong and those 4 little symbols on it will be worth a lot, but I don't see it right now. Until we see those game rules, we just can't value him high enough.